Hello, today I'm sharing my current favorite go-to feel-good makeup look. It gives some lift to my slightly downturned eyes that are getting a little bit more hooded. The older I get, I have a fold that cuts right through where my eyeliner goes. I've had this all matte eyeshadow eyeliner look on in a few videos. I've been wearing it in my everyday life and I thought I would share it here with you today. My skin is not looking its best right now. I'm trying to get rid of some little red spots. My eating was terrible during the Hurricane Ida evacuation and that shows up on my skin. We are back home. I have a new filming space set up. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think I like it. I was thinking about making the wall white back there, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. I'm hoping to get a vlog finished about our time while we were gone, as well as what's going on now. So hopefully I'll get that finished pretty soon. But back to the skin. Even though my skin is not feeling its best, I want it to look as good as it possibly can, but I also want it to look very natural and as skin-like as possible. And Beautyblender just launched a new foundation, the Bounce Always On Radiant Skin Tint that I've been testing out and wearing behind the scenes. So a portion of this video is in partnership with Beautyblender, so I can share more about this foundation with you. I'm excited about that. So let's get into my current favorite go-to makeup look and I'll just share what I've been doing lately. It's raining outside. I'm not sure if my lighting is absolutely optimal, but we are just gonna go with it today. This is my City Lips Lip Plumping Gloss. There is no label. It has worn off. This is in the shade San Diego. I always apply some type of moisturizing lip plumper that has good properties in it to prep my lips, plump out those lip lines and just, make them feel and look as good as possible so that when I go in with my lip products at the end of my makeup, my lips just look and feel as good as they possibly can. Now, I'm not using face primer today, but I am using an eyeshadow primer. This is the Wet n Wild eyeshadow primer. I only need a tiny amount and I think it's every bit as good as a high-end eyeshadow primer. I do kind of fluctuate between high-end and drugstore eyeshadow primers, but this is one that stays in my rotation, and so I thought I would use it today. For some of these products, I'm using certain products today, but I will interchange them with others. It doesn't have to be the products I'm using in this video. It's more about the technique. Now, I've applied the Beautyblender Bounce Skin Tint with and without primer. I like it both ways. Today, I'm using it without a primer just so you can see it over my bare skin and see the buildable coverage that it gives. Now, if you've watched my videos, you probably know that when I apply light, medium, full coverage, buildable foundations, I usually prefer to use a damp sponge. I just find it meshes with the skin really nicely and it's just the quickest and easiest method. You don't have to worry about streaks or anything. I'm all about quick and easy here on my channel, and using a damp sponge is just the best way for me to get quick and easy makeup. I get asked a lot how to know how wet or how dry your sponge should be. So today, of course, I am demonstrating using the original Beautyblender. What you want to do is run it under your faucet until it basically doubles in size. So you're going to get it as thoroughly wet as you possibly can. And then you want to squeeze all that water out as much as you can. It's still going to be doubled in size. And then I take it a step further and I squeeze it in a towel to get that extra water out. So you still get a nice damp sponge and the maximum product that you can get from the Beautyblender. Bounce Skin Tint comes in this really hygienic dropper bottle. I know a lot of you will be happy about that after all of these sponge tip applicators. It has a liquidy texture to it that makes it really easy to work with. I'm in the shade medium 3. I feel like it's a great match for my skin tone, and I like to take my sponge and dip it into the foundation that's on the back of my hand and just apply it all over my face. You can see here on application as I'm applying it, it gives a really radiant finish before I set it, but it feels lightweight and it does look like my skin. Applying one layer to this side of my face evened out my skin so nicely. Now, I don't take foundation under my eyes, so don't look at the dark circles that are still under my eyes, but it just looks really pretty and glowy. I'm going to apply a light layer to this side, and then I'm going to show you how you can build it in areas that you want to build it. I usually need a little bit more evening out on this side, so we'll really be able to see that over here. I did something a little bit different on each side so I could show you a buildable comparison. So on this side, I applied all 4 of those drops on the back of my hand, which if we're equating it to pumps of foundation, I would say that might be a third of a pump of foundation, probably. Now on this side of my face, I still have this left. So I only applied probably about half of that. So I would say I have light coverage over here and I have probably medium light coverage over here. So I'm gonna build this to maybe that same level. using what's on the back of my hand. I would say this is almost medium coverage right now on both sides. I took one more drop on the back of my hand. I love that I can build it from light to medium coverage and it feels good and lightweight on the skin. It has hyaluronic acid, which is going to plump the skin. It's going to improve the look of fine lines and also seal in that hydration, which is so important to so many of us as we get older. And for those of us with sensitive skin, it's got beta-glucan. It also has niacinamide and willow bark extract. Both of those help reduce redness, inflammation, and breakouts, and help smooth the look of pores too, which is something I'm all about. So I would say I have nice medium coverage. My pores look really good, and it covered the spots that I was concerned about, and it still looks like skin, and it still feels good, and it wears for up to 12 hours too. I have worn this on some decently long days, and it looks good. So this looks pretty radiant. Some people really like this dewy look, and if you like it, then don't set it. By all means, you don't need to, especially if you have dry skin. I need to conceal my under eyes, and I need to use some setting powder. I have to do that. I'm going in with a few dots of corrector. I'm using NARS today in the shade Light. If I want maximum yet still really natural looking coverage underneath my eyes, I always use a corrector. I think anyone should if they have, you know, purple or blue or red discoloration. No matter how great the concealer, it just saves it from giving you that shadowy cast, that slightly gray cast. It also keeps you from really having to layer up the concealer too in those areas. So my concealer is my beloved Lancome. You can use any you want. When I use my finger, it just melts it into the skin so nicely and looks really natural. It just kind of erases those dark circles. And you notice I didn't use a ton. I just keep it really localized. My favorite under eye setting powder is the Pat McGrath Labs in the shade Light. It looks like it's pure white, but it's translucent. I like to press in a small amount with my Beautyblender with my sponge. And no, I have not found that it has ruined the texture of the powder. It's just fine. And then I lightly dust away any excess with a small brush. I am going in with my Nakia Joy setting powder. I have several setting powders that I rotate. I'll have the link below to where I list those. I have a shop list page where I have listed kind of my favorite product lists. I update it often with new products, and setting powders is a list that I have going, and this is a longtime favorite. So I am patting this all over my face. You can skip this if you have dry skin, but it does help any powder products apply really smoothly. So when you apply powder like this, instead of dusting it on, it locks your foundation in for a really long time, and it keeps it really natural looking. It really fuses the powder into the skin. You can use long presses, you can use quick bounces, kind of like you're bouncing in your foundation. You just want to make sure it's nice and pressed into that skin so that it looks like skin. So what I do after that, which is totally extra, you don't need to do this, I take the excess in the lid and I swirl my brush in it and I just dust that over my skin, and it just maybe smooths over some areas that didn't get quite smoothed over. Do you see how natural that looks as opposed to having a layer of powder dusted over my face? I'm also going to take a fluffy eyeshadow brush and I'm going to set my eyeshadow primer with that same powder. I see a lot of people setting their eyeshadow primer with eyeshadow, and that doesn't keep your eyeshadow from creasing the way setting it with powder does. I pulled this Benefit Foroscope palette out during one of my videos that I filmed when we were evacuated, and I just was talking about how I loved using it. It was easy, it was, you know, great for every day, and somebody made the comment under there that it was evacuation worthy, and it is. It's so great for every day. It's so easy. What I want you to take from this is that I'm using a bronzer on a day-to-day basis, as well as a brightening yet neutral blush. I'll list a few other options if you're not into, you know, the face palette life, but I think this is what I'm going to use today again because I don't know, I've just been using it all the time. I'm going to keep it to just bronzer right now. I'm going to do blush after I do my eyes. I feel like it looks like I have this harsh line right here because of the way the lighting is coming in. We have a big storm outside right now, and so that light has disappeared, but this is kind of where my temple is sinking in with age. So great. And where the light is hitting me, it's not a harsh line. It just looks like that. You can use any palette, high-end, affordable drugstore for this look. I'll kind of guide you through the shades as we go. I am using the Persona Color Theory palette in Copper because this has just been my favorite for this lately. Something about the colors, the formula of Persona eyeshadows is fantastic. The first thing I do is take this kind of camel brown shade on the edge of this Rephr 02 brush and gliding it along my lower lash line, sticking with that same angle and taking it further. That's going to give me that lift. Then I'm taking my Rephr 01 brush and I'm just swiping that same pigment all across the lid, into the crease, up in the transition area. I'm being kind of messy. This could basically be a one and done look with a matte shade. It looks like there's pigment on these brushes, but I have cleaned it off with my Sigma switch, so that's just some staining. And I'm taking the Rephr 27 and blending out the edges. You don't have to use Rephr brushes for these. You can use similar shapes, whatever works for you. I just have these here and they work really well for me. So now I'm starting with this kind of double liner technique. I don't know what else to call it. I'm starting first with the shade dark brown, and I'm again following the same angle as my lower lash line, but I'm starting above the corner of my eye. It helps if I rest my pinky on my cheek. I don't know, it keeps me a little bit more stable. I first lightly just draw this angle out, and if my fold, my crease is in the way, I fill that area in. And to create that lift, I only keep this pigment to the outer half of my eye, and I'm basically kind of creating this really smudgy wing. And I know a lot of you have seen this, but I just want you to see exactly how smudgy and swirly it is, and I'm going to be doing something else with it here in a second. So I'm just swirling this little pencil brush up from the bottom and building it up. You can keep this little kind of mini smudgy wing, you know, short, or you can build it up. I find that even though when I start, it looks like I'm creating this really, really big line, by the time I finish, when I look straight ahead, it's really not that big, especially once I have mascara on. The second part of that double liner step that I think creates more of that smoky impact is taking black brown eyeliner shadow onto a tiny angled brush. Mine is a little bit torn up here. You can use it wet, you can use it dry, and I'm again following that same lower lash line angle, and I'm just stamping it really, really small with this tiny, tiny angled brush. And now I'm just building that up a tiny bit. This is also optional, but I found I really like this because it makes my eyes appear a little bit more almond shaped by adding this right against the lashes. So it gives them a little bit of an upturn without having to use heavy winged liner. I am going to smudge this out because I just feel like it looks really cool when I do that. I'm going to take the same Rephr 02 brush that I used earlier underneath my eyes in the shade Brick. I'm going to tap it one time on the back of my hand because it can lay down a lot of pigment. I like to add a little bit of this kind of on top of where I placed that eyeliner earlier. I like using this brush because it gives me a little bit more precision. I want to keep it right along the lines that we're using on the outer third, the outer half of the eye. I'm just kind of almost using paint strokes. Everything is happening on the outer third, the outer half. It's almost like a really, really slight gradient effect. And finally, I'm taking a Sephora Pro 15 brush into the shade Off-White, and I'm applying that to my brow bone as well as my inner corners. I always curl my eyelashes. I'm using my favorite eyelash curler from Rephr. I've been talking about this nonstop since I discovered it. If you do one thing to lift your eyes, especially as you get older, it should be curling your eyelashes. Even on no makeup days, I curl my eyelashes. I went in with one light layer of Maybelline FullnSoft waterproof mascara, waterproof to hold my curl. I do have a mascara routine here on my channel where I don't use waterproof and I can still hold my curl. It takes a little bit longer on an everyday basis, and if I really, really, really need extra insurance, I do use a light layer of waterproof. This is one of my favorites. The mascara that I reach for the most when I want the most volume and curl, just the maximum that I can get out of my wimpy lashes, is Bite Beauty Upswing Mascara. I have a few others that I rotate, but this is just my no-fail go-to every single time. It can look a bit clumpy when I first apply it, so I let it dry, I don't know, about 30–40%, and then I go through with my eyelash comb. And once it separates, it just gives me the lashes that I want. Now, if I wait too long to separate it, they can look a little bit dry and I might have to, you know, kind of scrape out some little clumps. But I just love this stuff. I'm about to need a replacement, actually. I applied the Honeymoon Blush from this palette. I just feel like it's such a great neutral. Again, I don't feel like it looks necessarily even because I don't have my lighting quite right, and the lighting from my window is weird. But I love this shade, and I do have a couple more options down below that I love for kind of a similar neutral face brightening shade. Because the Bounce Skin Tint gives a natural soft radiance to the skin, I don't feel like I need a highlighter. I feel like my face has a natural radiance to it. And highlighter is an optional product for me on go-to makeup days. I just kind of go with what I feel like doing. I did not apply a highlighter today. So I then blotted my City Lips lip plumping gloss off so that my lip liner would apply really nicely. And I have on today the Milani Understatement lip liner in the shade Nude Entrance. I enjoy reaching for nude or lips but better lip liners that make my lips appear a little bit fuller and fill in those lip lines and make my lipsticks last a little bit longer. And this one from Milani does all of that, and it's a great price too. The lip that I applied is one of my favorite pinky beige nudes. It's from Chanel. It's called Adrienne. I just think Chanel formulates their lipsticks so beautifully across the board. I've been wearing it a ton. I originally bought it because I read that Jennifer Aniston loved it. It may have been even a long time ago, but I remember thinking it was so flattering on her. And this is one of my favorites, not only for the shade, but the formula too. It's creamy, it's opaque, it's hydrating, nourishing, and it wears a long time for a bullet lipstick. But I do have a drugstore option too from Flower Beauty. I have the shade Buttercup. I actually included this in my recent dupes video for a Charlotte Tilbury lipstick. So here we have the Chanel and here we have the Flower Beauty. You can see there's a little bit of a shade difference. The Flower Beauty is slightly pinker. It's also a little bit more sheer and it doesn't wear quite as long as the Chanel, but the formula of the Flower Beauty is great. It's one of my favorite drugstore lip formulas. So I've been reaching for both of these. I think they're great. They make me feel good with whatever makeup look I'm wearing. So while I may vary the actual products that I use, different foundations, different powders and blushes and eyeshadow palettes, whatnot, the general idea is the same. I want my skin to look nice. I don't want to have to take a lot of time to conceal. I want my eyeshadow to kind of have this look. I think you get the idea. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you haven't seen my latest dupes video, I'll have it here for you, as well as my August favorites and fails. There were a lot of great and not so great products in that video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!